Welcome to this special edition of Freedom and Prosperity Radio, the weekly radio news magazine we put together here at the Virginia Institute for Public Policy. This is our special Federation for American Immigration Reform Feet to the Fire radio rally edition, and we kick it off with former Attorney General and Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Ken Cuccinelli.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. I'm doing very better than America.
Well, you're getting younger. I don't know what it is you're doing, but
kids are leaving the house.
I've heard that happens. So first off, let's focus in on how bad things have been unraveled at the southern border. Well, you were Homeland Security Deputy Secretary. You know, how much have they really undone in this crisis?
Well, they've undone not everything, but darn close to it. And the things they haven't undone, they don't enforce with enthusiasm. So it's a whole lot easier if you think of the position of the two sides, those of us who want security and those who don't. If you sue people imposing security and stop it, you've achieved your goal. If you sue people who don't want security and get a court to order them to impose security, then what you get is foot dragging and lack of enthusiasm. So you don't really get security. This was yes, technically the Remain in Mexico program was ordered to be continued, but it lacked prioritization, and they were intentionally performing poorly. So, it's asymmetric contest here, and they've torn down an awful lot that was working.
So, yeah, and I was talking to some lawyers I know around here in D.C., go figure, that said, the laws are still there. You mentioned the enthusiasm towards enforcing it. What kind of world do you get into where you start telling law enforcement agents, don't enforce these laws? Then the citizens start feeling like, well, if the law enforcement, policeman, border guard enforces this law on me, well, it must be because of something specific about me, because he's been told not to enforce it otherwise. I mean, this gets into drugs and everything else. When you say the law is not really the law, I mean, that's a scary place.
Well, one of the foundational elements of this country is that we are a land of laws, that everybody lives by the same rules, except the Clintons, of course. But from a principled standpoint, that's foundational, and that sounds so obvious to us, but it wasn't normal. Mm-hmm. The monarchy didn't live under the same laws. I am the law was the French king quote, mm-hmm. and Louis XIV, I believe, and that attitude was wiped away historically in America. And now you see an administration that, and we see it with Soros prosecutors, for instance. Sure. Jason Miyares has spoken an awful lot about this, who get to decide for themselves what the law is. At least that's the power they're arrogating to themselves. It's totally un-American, for starters, and it's contrary to both our history and the principles of our founding.
So this is a special for Ken Cuccinelli. I'm going to ask about federalism and the American border. People talk about nationalizing laws, voter laws, those kind of things, and we push back against it because the federal government isn't supposed to tell the states what to do. But the southern border is national security. Where is the sweet spot? We've seen the arguments about what can DeSantis or Abbott in D.C. What can they do? Can they call up their own state police to stand a post? Can they deputize some sort of Texas Rangers unit to do it? Or are they not allowed to do it? And
both questions are yes. And this is controversial. It's never been fought over before. But I would point out that for the first 100 years of Texas existence, they did this. They just did it. Nobody questioned it. Arizona did it. And we were talking about infinitesimally smaller numbers coming across that border that they were contending with. So now we literally have millions coming over. It's hard to argue, in my view, that this is not an invasion. And when invaded, and the states invaded, in this case the border states, they have rights to defend themselves under Article 1, Section 10, the very end, Paragraph 3. And
I knew he'd love this question.
Yeah, well, and at the Center for Renewing America, we have a paper up on the subject. People can find it at americarenewing.com under the Immigration Security section. These border states, they can't go invading other countries, but they can defend their borders. They can repel an invasion, and they don't need federal permission to do it. And that's what's in Article 1, Section 10. It's basically a self-defense clause. It's the compact clause. States can't do any of these things without congressional permission, such as wage war, except when actually invaded. So, the 4 border states at least are certainly being actually invaded. They can repel that invasion and put those people back over the border.
Which hat are you wearing? Is this Vote Integrity Day? Is this Immigration?
This is Center for Renewing America, Senior Fellow for Homeland Security and Immigration.
You have more jobs now than you've left the public sector.
So my youngest, Max, asked me one day we were driving in the car, he said, Dad, how many jobs do you have? And I said, well, that's a really good question, Max. It really depends how you count them. I help own an oyster farm in the Chesapeake Bay.
You're kidding.
Still doing that.
You got my wife's attention.
Election, and practicing law, con law, business law. So.
And at the end of the day, you're going to be an oyster farmer sitting there with your.
Isn't that what every former attorney general does? I think that's just part of their retirement plan.
So I want to switch your hat though for a moment and ask you about today being Election Day, at the beginning of our 45-day election season, wabbit season, duck season.
Yeah, wabbit duck, fire! Yes.
So A, have you voted yet? B, I have publicly said I am volunteering my afternoons in Fluvanna County, my new home, to be a poll watcher because I feel like somebody public facing needs to say, and I said, I will be a poll watcher on Election Day. I will put a fill-in host or just do a best of that day and say, this is more important than coming on and taking phone calls for a day and trying to get you to work. We need those poll watchers so desperately, don't we, Ken?
We do, and look, Virginia successfully showed how effective it is. In 2021, with no real national organization, grassroots, regular Virginians rose up, created organizations, and took advantage of the ones there, like Virginia Institute for Public Policy. Lynn Taylor has been doing a great job leading this in Virginia, and people with expertise like Clarabelle Wheeler, who a lot of people who've dealt with this have run into in Virginia, and many others, we could go on and on, trained themselves up, thousands, and went in as election officials. Yes. They ran the polling places. They counted the votes. And the Democrats, this has always been available. And yep. It's a citizenship duty. And we need citizens to step up and do it. Now, a 45-day election makes it a lot harder to commit to. If one side isn't employed and the other side is, then the unemployed side is going to show up more and be more available to man these slots. And the Democrats have historically had more people inside the polls than Republicans. Republicans and conservatives, though, 2020 woke them up. All the problems, including, they didn't stop in 2021. You look at Virginia's biggest county, Fairfax Registrar was breaking the law. The voter ID law for absentee ballots brazenly in hundreds of cases. I still hope that case will be advanced by the Attorney General's Election Integrity Unit. And you can't talk about investigations, so I don't really know if it's going to happen, but I certainly hope it does. They've started in Prince William.
Well, but this is the thing that so many of my listeners have said while we've been here, is when are people going to start getting punished? And maybe this Fairfax case.
It's a very slow process, and it's why elections have to be secured on the front side, not the back side, because you really don't clean up an election after problems have happened. You secure it before they happen.
I know our mutual friend Tom Garrett is one of the few Commonwealth's attorneys that actually went into a senior center and said, hey, all these people who voted, their signature looks an awful lot like yours, and actually got a prosecution for that.
Yeah, and we need more of those. It isn't the penalties, it's the certainty of getting caught that really deters people from breaking the law in the first place.
But doesn't there, and I go back to Madison, Jefferson, and you look at, while we can still talk about them before they get taken off of the library masthead and then get scarlet lettered. By the way, Monday is the next Jefferson-Madison Regional Library Board meeting. Send them letters. Oh, that's another one of those fights.
You're talking about renaming it?
Yeah, well, there's a group that wants Madison's and Jefferson's name taken off because they were racist. And I said, well, once they get the piece of paper that says that, now the Bill of Rights can go away. Now the Declaration can go away. Now you can insert whatever you want because, well, you would never, ever run a government based on the work of a racist, would you, Ken? And that's
James Madison drew up the greatest governance document in the history of the world. Thomas Jefferson with the Declaration of Independence, wrote the single greatest natural law document in the history of the world, and that's the 1-2 punch for America.
Yep.
That is pretty incredible. And where do they? Oh, right, Virginia. Yeah. How about that?
We got to give some credit to George Mason and James Monroe for pushing for the Bill of Rights and then negotiating the treaty.
Henry, yes, the greatest loser in history. To overcome him in the Virginia Ratification Convention, Madison had to promise the Bill of Rights. To Madison's credit, he delivered. And because Henry wouldn't back down and lost, we got the Bill of Rights.
And that's a great point on it. It's not always getting the win. It's about the outcome of the loss. But anyway,
or you could say he did get the win.
Yeah, in the end,
he got
the Bill of Rights.
He got the Bill of Rights and a government structure.
A better Bill of Rights.
He wasn't willing to go forward with just this government. And can you imagine if we didn't have the Bill of Rights today?
Or we had one like Magna Cartas that say the government gives you this, the government gives you that. So
that's the role of the Declaration that points out that all comes from God, not from government.
Exactly. So the point I was making isn't so much of this blood sport that we see around these elections based on the inappropriate power that these offices have taken on, even if it's money that doesn't exist yet. They're trafficking in money, they're trafficking in influence.
Absolutely. A good friend of yours and mine, Brian Gottstein, pointed out to me many years ago that if you want civility in politics, take the power out of government because there won't be as much to fight over.
That's so well said. And bless you, sir. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Ken Cuccinelli. Give the website again.
AmericaRenewing.com.
AmericaRenewing.com.